Good afternoon, Guyana, and thank you for joining us for another segment of Transition to Government. My name is Hugh Todd, and today joining us we have Priya Manik-Chan, attorney at law and former minister. We have also Mr. Nigel Darmlal, who is a PPP executive, both national candidates. Thank you, lady and gentlemen, for joining us this afternoon.
Well, thanks for having us, Hugh.
As you know, we've been living in a very politically charged environment over the last 100+ days. We're yet to bring finality to this process. We know who are the chief obstructors in the process, trying to deny the people of their free will to elect a government of their choice. And we've seen all of the shenanigans being played out by the APNU AFC, led by no other than David Granger. We want to go through a few points today to bring much clarity to our viewership and our citizens as a whole, because it is our duty to ensure that we keep our people informed, regardless of their political affiliation, color, creed, or class, because it's a national effort that we're trying to facilitate, and no one should be left behind in terms of their understanding of the process, because we need the buy-in of each and every one. I want to begin with the CARICOM report. And we're doing so because David Granger mentioned publicly on several occasions that he was depending on the CARICOM report as a key component that comprised his 4 C's. He mentioned that the recount process was not just about the tabulation, but also about the credibility of the process. And he was depending on CARICOM as the chief interlocutor to bring much clarity to the process so that he can be comfortable, along with his party, to come to the people of Guyana to endorse their report. He has never done so. No one from his party has ever come out and give any positive remarks about the report, but the report was endorsed by the People's Progressive Party Civic, all of the political parties that contested the elections, along with the international observers and the local observers, as well as our international partners and organizations. Priya, I'll begin with you. That report was important. Why is it not being endorsed by David Granger and the PNC-led coalition?
Well, as you said, Hugh, at the beginning, Mr. Granger said on behalf of his party, the PNC, as well as the coalition, the People's Progressive, the APNU AFC, that things that the PPP and other good citizens protested against was because he believed that the CARICOM was the most legitimate interlocutor, that the CARICOM team and the CARICOM community was professional and would produce results that would meet international standards and satisfy international standards, and that he had every confidence in the CARICOM community. The CARICOM community was going in, or the recount started with Mr. Granger's party saying that they would win the election because they received more votes than every other political party, and particularly the People's Progressive Party Civic at the election. What started happening from the opening of Box 1, and then Box 2, and then Region 1 and Region 2, what started happening is we started seeing a picture that was very clear. There was a 99.96 accuracy level of what happened on election night. So the APNU-AFC did not, in fact, receive more votes. That is when they started making some very wild claims that the CARICOM observers referred to as fishing expeditions, where they gave an example, and this was one example out of many, that they went into one person had voted in a particular polling place, and the APNU proceeded to list a set of names that were migrated and dead. So the CARICOM team saw that those names were being listed, people were being, there was a fishing expedition going on, no evidence was forthcoming, and There were objections to each of those names by the other political parties in the group. Having assessed all of that, this professional team, who was touted to deliver results that would satisfy international standards, came up with a report that said, we believe, and let me read to you what Prime Minister Motley, who is the chairman of the CARICOM community, the Caribbean community, said today. She said the CARICOM observer team was of the unshakable belief that the people of Guyana expressed their will at the ballot box on March 2nd, and that the results of the recount, certified as valid by the staff of GCOM, led to an orderly conclusion on which the declarations of the results of the election would be made. She went on to say any attempt to provide numbers different from those certified by the staff of GCOM has left many in shock and wondering what next will happen to frustrate the will of the Guyanese people. The community holds the strong view that no voter must be disenfranchised in determining the credibility of this or any election. It is this community to a fair and transparent political process that led us to send 2 electoral observer missions, one for the elections and one for the recount. In addition, 4 prime ministers accompanied me to talk to both sides and to urge patience, especially after the death of one person. And she goes on to thank the community and thank the people of Guyana. Why doesn't Mr. Granger and his party want to accept the report? Because the report said to the people of the CARICOM, and this report was endorsed, I heard you say, not only by the people of Guyana and the political parties of Guyana, but by the international community, the OAS, the Commonwealth, individual countries all endorsed that report. And the reason Mr. Granger has not accepted or does not appear to be celebrating that report is because it said very clearly that the community is of the unshakable belief that the people of Guyana expressed their will on March 2nd, and that is what is contained in the recount results. And so what we have, Hugh, is really people who, when you want to thief an election, you'll change the narrative if you're shameless, which we've established they are. You'll change the narrative as we go along, just to meet your end, which is to stay in office or to be sworn into office in spite or in defiance of the will of the people of this country.
Thank you, Priya. Nigel, you can take a go at that too.
Once again, good afternoon to our viewers. I think that the statement of Prime Minister Maya Motley has been unequivocal, that this process that we have been painstakingly going through for the last almost 3 months, that it needs to come to an end. The results are very clear. The results are practically published. The results are well known. And what David Granger and his administration, what they continue to do is to deny the will of the majority electorate or the will of the people of Guyana to have a government that they elected in a fair, free, transparent, credible elections. We've had an election since March 2nd. We've had statements of polls that were counted on the evening of March 2nd. By the morning of March 3rd, we were already aware who the victors of the elections were. And of course, the People's Progressive Party at that time came out victorious. We went through, after many machinations of Mingo, certainly Mingo was led by his nose, and all of the actors are now out for us to see the intellectual authors of the rigging that took place and the apparent rigging that they intend to continue with. We have had 2 false declarations with fraudulent numbers. We have had 2 reports since then by Lowenfield following the national recount. The national recount as well has been validated by the ABC, European Union. It has been validated by CARICOM. It has been validated by the OS. It has been validated by all of the observers. It was validated by more than 80 technical and operational staff of GCOM. It was validated by all of the political parties that contested the elections, including APNU AFC, despite all of their shenanigans along the 33 days that we were at the Ardachon Convention Center. So we have gotten now to a point where it is obvious that they are aware that they have lost. They are aware that they are on their way out of government, but they are also hanging on to power, hanging on to government because of things we will be discussing later on. But at this point in time, I think that the CARICOM report that was presented, very clear. The elections were free, fair, transparent. The national recount provided validity. The national recount verified the numbers for each political party. The national recount produced results that show that the People's Progressive Party Civic has 15,000 plus votes more than the APNU AFC. In combination with the smaller parties, 24,500 plus more votes. People voted against the coalition. So for all intents and purposes, we also, as citizens of this country, we would like to see this process move forward quickly. We would like to see a declaration done almost immediately by GCOM, and Dr. Irfan Ali and the People's Progressive Party get into government and let us begin to serve our people as the government of Guyana.
Thank you, Nigel, for that. And staying on CARICOM, following on from the report itself, we've had two heads of state, former heads of state, and we have a current head of state, Maya Motley. The two former would be Owen Arthur and Bruce Golding, who came out and they've made strong and bold statements about the process itself. We've also had Ralph Gonzalez from St. Vincent, all helping to bring a lot of relief to the Guyanese populace, because as a member of CARICOM, we are brothers and sisters, and we want to do the right thing. As one of the leaders of CARICOM, one of the largest economies also in CARICOM, we have a responsibility to show good faith, to operate with the kind of credibility and honesty and decency that is required to remain as a cohesive union. What I want us to do is to help the people of Guyana to understand that the way that the APNU FC is behaving and the fact that CARICOM is calling us out on it, that they meaning the APNU FC, they do not represent the true values of the Guyanese people. Priya.
Absolutely not. You spoke of us being brothers and sisters of CARICOM. It's a new world, and it's a beautiful new world. We're citizens of the world, and that is why you've seen the Americans and the Canadians and the British and French and Norwegians, Indians, just about every other country, all the countries of the 4 countries of the Commonwealth nations, the OAS countries, all simply saying, I mean, there's a lot of time, I keep feeling like they'll get fed up of us because this is taking up so much time. But this is a lot of time that has been invested in making sure that the people of Guyana, the men and women and children of Guyana, these citizens in this little country, are treated fairly and are treated like human beings with the human right to choose a government. And we are not left alone. It's a beautiful, encouraging feeling. You see, the problem with Mr. Granger and his cronies is they're really these are men touching their 90s. Youngest of them might be him, who's 75 or whatever. They are not accustomed to this world. They don't understand that people who have never seen our borders will stand up and hold placards and hold pickets for us because they believe in the citizens of the world enjoying certain basic freedoms and rights. Yes, today the Canadians, British, and Americans issued a statement and the European Union issued a statement through their respective ambassadors, and they said very clearly, we note the CARICOM observer mission. They're not separating who's, you know, which CARICOM people did it. They don't think CARICOM is lesser than they are. And we know that Mr. Granger referred to them as, quote, the most legitimate interlocutor. And that they concluded on the 15th of June that nothing we witnessed, and here they're quoting the CARICOM observers, nothing we witnessed warrants a challenge to an inescapable conclusion that the recount results are acceptable and should constitute the basis of the declaration of results of the March 2nd, 2020 elections. They went on to say, pending the outcome of the appeal to the CCJ, we trust GCOM to meet its constitutional duty to issue a declaration on the basis of the results of the recount as confirmed by CARICOM to ensure the democratic choice of the people is fulfilled. That common thread you see running through you, democratic choice of the people, the will of the people, people's human inherent rights to choose a government of their own. These are shared values of democracies around this world. And we are simply not going to be left alone. So I think this was definitely unplanned. The government did not cater for this, the APNU AFC. They thought they would railroad. As you know, Mr. Granger was dressed at least 4 times with the ceremonial people ready to swear him in. And he told his supporters by tomorrow morning, one Thursday, he told them by tomorrow morning, I will be your president for my 2nd term. They did not expect the world to resist this kind of theft. And that's what we're seeing here. But why are people resisting this? Because governments who thief power to stay in office don't serve their people. There's no need to serve your people. There's no need to win hearts and votes through your service because you're going to steal the next election. And if there's no need to win hearts and votes through your service, then there's no need to serve. So what you saw in the last 5 years, people going hungry and not being fed. People losing jobs and not being subsidized, electricity bills going up and water bills going up and farming equipment becoming unaffordable and unaffordable, and farmers being left to their own devices and land being taken away from the regular common man, Black and Indian alike, and Amerindian, and given to cronies of the government. That is just a tip of what you will see them do going forward. And that is why the people of the world are standing up and resisting this, because people who thief power and go into office, they punish their citizens. Very soon, things like Facebook shutting down, our freedoms to speak and express ourselves. You saw what happened. They're not even in government as yet. We're protesting the draconian measure to lock the Carter Center out. And what happens? The PPP supporters and protesters are arrested, charged, and placed before the court. You see the comparison. APNU supporters are on the street. And I'm not calling for them to be arrested, but I'm saying if you're not going to arrest them, then withdraw the charges against us. Yes. So that's how rights wither away. And if we have a whole country in Guyana with no rights and no values that reflect human values across the world, then we're going to become a burden to the world. And that is why, outside of their human goodness and kindness, they don't want a burden called Guyana. So they're prepared to help this country remove the burden called APNU AFC. Take them out from around our necks and toss them off so that the people of Guyana can breathe. And that's why we're seeing that kind of worldwide support for us. By us, I mean Guyana.
Okay. Thank you, Pray. Nigel, please.
Yeah,
you recall this statement.
Guyana is one of the members of CARICOM. The Treaty of Chaguaramas is very clear. We also signed on to the Civil Society Charter of CARICOM that binds us to principles of democracy that would ensure that our country becomes and our country maintains a status that is binding with other countries of the world, like-minded countries of the world. I do not think that APNU AFC understands the importance of democracy. I do not think they understand the importance of freedom. I do not think they understand the impact that those would have on building a credible economy, on building a foreign policy that is respectful, that on building multinational businesses in our country, on building a strong defense of our country. So all of what they're doing, I think, results from lots of selfishness by not the entire membership of the APNU-AFC, because we have seen no less a person than Dominic Gaskin. We have seen C.N. Sharma taking his entire party out of all of what the APNU-AFC has been doing. And his party, the Justice for All Party, is also one of the founders of the APNU. We have seen and heard Kemraj Ramjatan, the prime ministerial candidate of the APNU-AFC, going at length, meeting with his staff, conceding that the People's Progressive Party has won the elections. He even quoted a number, 15,000 plus votes. Privately, many of their leaders, many of their financiers, many of their friends, many of their beneficiaries would also touch base with leaders of the People's Progressive Party Civic, commending us on the victory, congratulating us on our victory at the polls, and also encouraging us to do well for the country, encouraging us to make sure that our Constitution remains supreme. And I think that all that has happened in the last 3 months, as this process has been going on, like I said earlier, painstakingly, the People's Progressive Party Civic has always stood by the law. And every time that Mr. Granger and his cabal, they seek to break the law, the People's Progressive Party has always stood by the law, and we have always come out on top with the law in our hands. We expect too that as we have gone to the Supreme Court of Justice, the law will also prevail and the People's Progressive Party Civic will prevail. But however, going to the Caribbean Court of Justice does not stop GCOM from doing what is right, from doing what they're constitutionally mandated to do and to comply with, and that is to declare the winner of the elections based on the polls as well as the national recount, Dr. Irfan Ali as the president. Article 177(2) of our Constitution is very clear, very unambiguous where that is concerned. He has more votes, his party has more votes than, and whether you say more votes cast or more valid votes cast, votes can only be valid. If they are not valid, then they are not votes. So, you know, the semantics of what the APNU-AFC they have been pursuing will all be like quote unquote water on duck's back when the law is taken into effect. So we expect the GCOM, and I'm very happy, and I think the majority of this country, if not all of this country, is very happy when the Madam Chair of GCOM, Madam Justice retired Claudette Singh, writing to Lowenfield recently, indicating and outlining the parameters of the report. Lowenfield has submitted a report yesterday that is in contravention of the Constitution, that is in contravention of the Representation of the People Act, that is in contravention and insubordination of the instructions given to him by his boss, the chairperson of GCOM and the commission of GCOM, and is also in contravention of what the Chief Justice had ruled many months ago, or many weeks ago, in terms of the recount numbers. It is in contravention of the dignity of the people of this country. It is in contravention of the dignity of the recount process, the recount order as well. So I do not see anywhere Mr. Granger getting close back to State House. I don't see him getting anywhere close to Chief Chandapal Drive. He is basically holding fort until Irfan Ali swears in as president and the People's Progressive Party Civic government gets installed and takes the reins in our country. So I would like to encourage, as the ABC and European Union said, as Prime Minister Maya Motley said, and even the OAS. The OAS is a conglomeration of 35 countries. So, and yesterday, they were the first to issue a statement that Mr. Granger and the APNU AFC needs to respect what is happening, that GCOM needs to produce the results as they were produced during the recount. Very clear the numbers are and were. And so we would like to call on the Guyanese people as well to remain calm, remain engaged, but be sure that democracy will prevail and your vote was counted, has to be counted, and will be recorded as all valid votes in us moving forward. Low and Feel has no authority to deny anyone their vote. That is despite everyone else confirming and validating all of the votes that were cast on election day.
Okay, thank you very much, Nigel. I want to come to you, Prey, because I'm looking at the 4 C's that Granger addressed, and the court is one of the C's. So I would imagine that he was trying to tell the people of Guyana that one of these C's will save the APNU AFC, and I think they're hanging on to the court. The recent filing at the Court of Appeal, we know what happened there, and we have decided to move to, we being the People's Progressive Party Civic, decided to move to the Caribbean Court of Justice on a matter of jurisdiction. But as an attorney at law, Priya, can the court facilitate any manipulation of the numbers or to give way to the CEO of GCOM, not the CEO, the Chief Elections Officer of GCOM, to present the matter in his view where he thinks it's legitimate? I want you to take a stab at that, because we've seen how they've been moving.
I always put an adjective in, and that is properly. Can the court properly do something? Because frankly, I don't believe the court had jurisdiction or could properly have given itself jurisdiction, yet it did. And I am a lawyer. I'm office of the court, more likely to be hauled before the court for contempt than Nigel, for example. But I will risk that because I believe far more is at stake here than my freedom. So let's talk a little bit about that. No court can, without a proper examination, and that means a trial, into the allegation of votes being invalid, no court can make that a vote, no court can invalidate a vote. So right now what we have, and let's talk a little bit about that. What we have are count 460,000 valid votes recorded under certificates of recount and allocated to various political parties. The PPPC had got earned or were given by the people of Guyana 233,337 of those votes, and the PNC, APNU, AFC 217,000 something of those votes. The political parties who joined their lists got just under 10,000, 9,000 and something votes. Those are all valid votes.
Yes.
If one wants, because I speak specifically to supporters, sympathizers of the APNU AFC here, I see quite a number of them are on our feed. We welcome you and we're very happy that you are here because we believe we owe you the same explanation we owe people who vote for us. And there is a legitimate question being asked by some supporters of the APNU. Well, what about, why doesn't Mia take her so-and-so self and go somewhere else? Because she didn't think about the fraudulent votes, and she didn't think about the invalidated votes, and she didn't think about the dead people who voted. And my friends, that's not true. Mia Motley, the Americans, the Canadians, the British, the French, and everybody else who has spoken, the Carter Center, all the political parties here, they did take into consideration the allegations of fraud, of dead people voting, of migrated people voting. They heard those allegations. They looked at everything that dealt with the allegations, and they concluded that the allegations comprised more of a fishing expedition than actual voter fraud. So it's not that they didn't do it, they didn't look at it, and they don't want to think about these things. They have looked at it. They have considered it deeply and they tossed it out. They said where someone truly believes they have a claim, that as Amna Ali said, dead people got up, came out of their resting, went to vote and went back to rest. She actually said that on a press conference. And she was not speaking for herself, she was representing her party. They said those things are just not credible, they're not reliable, and it does not interfere with what people said through their ballot on the 2nd of March. It's not as though nobody's considering these claims. What they're saying is that Mr. Granger or any one of his surrogates in the recount center who jumps up and says, invalidate that vote, or this is fraud, that does not amount to fraud without evidence. And so your question was whether a court could invalidate a vote. Yes, but it would have to be through a whole trial where the allegation is made, the court hears the other side, the court hears the voter against whom the allegation is made. As you know, Hugh, many persons came forward on Facebook, yes, in the newspapers, by way of affidavit, which is a sworn document that says they're telling the truth. And if they swear to something that's not true, they risk jail time. People would, yes, not risk jail time just to satisfy the PPP, who disputed forcefully the allegations that were being made by the APNU AFC. And so it's not as though that hasn't been considered. And I want to point out one small thing. The allegation is that you hear these things about many people died and voted. They claim that 58 people who were dead voted. That is not true. We found most of them. They also claim 500 people who were migrated voted. The PPPC won this election by 15,416 votes. If we gave them all the votes for the people they said migrated and voted, gave them, not subtracted it, we're giving it to them. Except we're not at liberty to give away people's votes. But I'm saying if we were to do that, and we gave them all the votes that they said were dead people voted, we would still be trouncing them at the election, because that is what the people of Guyana want. And so don't get, there are supporters of the APNU AFC who are absolutely malicious and they're misleading of other supporters. For them, I have no sympathy, and they will have to face the consequences and be defined by what they're doing. But there are supporters of the APNU who believe the lies. And it is to them that I speak, to say that you cannot make these kinds of allegations up and just have them recorded. Look, Mr. Lowenfield is looking to take away 115,000 votes. It would mean that more people voted in the 2015 election, which installed Mr. Granger as president, than in the 2020 election. That's just not possible. First of all, we have more people on the list. Secondly, this was touted to be the mother of all elections. Do you really believe that 100 and something thousand people less than last time voted this time? So the issue is not that it has not been considered, is that it has been considered, and it is considered not to be credible and not to in any way have affected the March 2nd vote.
Yes. Okay, thank you, Priya, for bringing clarity to that. This is the final question, not question, statement, and I'll begin with you, Nigel. We've seen, you mentioned a lot about Lowenfield and his insubordination, trying to deny the will of the people, and running around preventing the rightful submission or the truthful submission. Whilst he is doing that, we've had tons of state lands being given away, and a lot of corruption is going on right now. And we believe that there's a connection between the two. Because how can a government that is in the category of caretaker mode behave as if they've just been elected to operate? Is there a connection between the two? How do you view the two?
Well,
and then Priya, you'll go after that.
Yes. I think there is a connection between what is taking place and all of what Lowenfield and the others are doing to stall this election, the declaration of the elections. But before I venture into what I want to say, I would just like to mention too that in all of this, many people were frustrated with the performance of the chair of GCOM. I personally think that the GCOM chair has done, with all that has happened around her, I think she has done fantastically well up to this point. She has stood by the law, and I would like to commend her for that, by standing by the law. Let us hope that that continues onto the point of swearing in and thereafter.
Yes.
But going back to Lowenfield, the end of the road is very near for the Granger government. They've gotten to a cul-de-sac, and Lowenfield is the last opportunity to buy them time until they crash into the wall. What we have seen in the last few days, 130 plus acres of prime real estate worth billions of dollars given away as a pittance to many friends and cronies and even families of the APNU AFC. And that has happened consistently in the last 5 years. Remember, Granger lost a vote of confidence on December 21, 2018. We are almost 19 months since that time. The corruption that took place in the last 19 months under a government, under a regime actually, that has been, that has outlived its usefulness by more than 1 year and 3 months. The corruption has become legendary. Lowenfield himself is a beneficiary of corrupt deals of this government. He himself, in the Auditor General's report of the Auditor General's Office of our country, he has been cited, the Guyana Elections Commission Secretariat, of which he is the CEO. They have been cited repeatedly for breaches, financial breaches in our country, for procurement breaches. Hundreds of millions of dollars were spent at the national recount. Billions of dollars were spent at the elections. Billions of dollars were spent doing a house-to-house registration that thankfully the chair of GCOM curtailed. So all of this happened to enrich people. The last few days, the last few weeks, since March 2nd, they have continued as though they are normal government. We are fully aware that they were supposed to have resigned themselves since the successful passage of the no confidence vote against them on December 21, 2018. All of what they have done since then, without due regard to our procurement laws, without due regard to the Fiscal and Financial and Accountability Act, without due regard to the Constitution of Guyana, that all of those things are illegal. And we have said very clearly from the outset that beneficiaries of illegal deals between the Granger regime and whoever benefited, that we will have to review them. And we will review them with a view to repossessing them. And those who are culpable, those who are illegally involved, will have to be prosecuted and face the full extent of the law where those things are concerned. So, you know, BK Tiwari, a few days ago, $325+ million. And we know his ties with the regime. We have seen this, the COVID hospital, quote unquote COVID hospital, not yet opened. We have over 200 COVID positive cases in our country. We had almost a dozen people who died and over $1 billion spent without any procurement. We recently saw a few days ago, 680 million already paid out without any proper documentation. So the taxpayers will, and I myself, like yourself and hundreds of thousands of others in this country, we have to demand that when we get back into office, that all of these things have to be investigated. And like I said, those culpable of breaking the laws, those culpable of stealing quote unquote state assets, those culpable of giving away, those involved in cronyism and nepotism, they have to be held accountable. The last few days, I can't keep repeating myself, but the last few days, tremendous hundreds of billions of dollars were expended without proper documentation, without proper authority. As a matter of fact, Granger has no authority to expend monies other than warm the bench of warm the seat of the office of the president until Irfan Ali gets sworn in as the president. So all of what has happened is illegal that they have been doing in the last few months.
Thank you very much, Nigel. And Priya, we'll end with you.
Oh, yeah. I want to say, I think I heard before, and I didn't get a chance to correct it. So if I'm wrong, if I didn't hear Nigel correctly, then please forgive me. I want to recognize in a special way the chairman of GCOM, Claudette Singh.
Yes.
Many people were unsure about whether she can be trusted to deliver. So I'm speaking very frankly about, and many questions arose as to whether she can be trusted to deliver free and fair and credible elections like she said she would. Now that we see what's unfolding here, I think we have an understanding of what this lady had to live with. She was living in a nest of snakes. Her chief election officer is a man who, in front of rolling cameras and with the world's eyes on him, is prepared to steal and rig this election by supplying numbers. You know, Mr. Lowenfield's report last week differs from his report this week. Yes. Last week, he said it was 285,000 votes that were not credible. This week, nobody knows which hat he pulled these figures out of. But this week, he says it's only 115,000. She is dealing with people like that all around her. I don't believe Mr. Lowenfield worked by himself. I believe he's ably assisted by the Roxanne Myers of the team and other people. We know for sure that there was a Claremont Mingo who, in front of the eyes of the world, literally and figuratively, also rigged the election. So bear in mind, this is someone operating in that kind of environment, yes, and was still able to make sure that Mr. Granger did not effect one of those dress-ups to swear in. The country owes her a debt of gratitude. I believe that she has already said publicly and by way of affidavit that the only votes that can count are the votes that are recorded as valid on the recount certificates, and that neither she nor the commission is in a place to invalidate those votes. She's not going to recant on that. And I would like to encourage the nation both to pray for Justice Singh, to give her the strength and guidance and so on she needs, but also to know that you can trust her. I believe she's shown us that will happen, and I don't see how she can recant on what she has publicly said already. Regarding the corruption, Mr. Granger sits during his interview and happily says, I can't give hampers and I can't serve the people of Guyana because I need a budget. And I hope if we have to delay these elections that the opposition will come and give me permission to go and get money to give people hampers and pay teachers and pay public servants. But you can sell 130 acres and you can give $352 million in one contract, and you can dole out money to people who financed you and your friends and your family. I mean, it is not only bad governance, it is corrupt, it is rotten. Yes. It speaks to his dislike for the people he expects to serve or he wants to serve. And it's really reprehensible. You know, Hugh, with the elections, after both elections, I never went back. I served twice in where there were two elections, and I never went back into office from the day of election because it's just wrong. You have to wait until you figure out what's happening, whether people gave you the mandate to go back into those ministries. Rupert, when he assumed office after me, had to send my shoes and lipstick and so on home in a box, my artwork, because I didn't go back into the office. And so there's good governance, and there is a team who has practiced that good governance that you've gotten a chance to see, the PPPC. We didn't talk about some of those things enough. And there's a team who is sitting down here telling the people, we can't pay you, we can't serve you, we can't give you hampers and masks in these COVID times, and we can't give our nurses help, but we can give out contracts to one or two of our friends that amount to billions of dollars. It is reprehensible. I want to end, Hugh, with a statement by a real leader, a true leader, legitimate leader, a leader whose people gave her the mandate, the CARICOM chair, Prime Minister of Barbados, Mia Mottley. And this is what she said. The role and focus of political parties must be useful and not obstructive in embracing and promoting the clear and expressed will of the people. When we confuse and frustrate that will is when we begin to sow the very seeds of discord and acrimony that we are sworn to dissuade and discourage. For me, this is a wallop on Mr. Granger and his gang.
Nigel, Priya, thank you very much for such an insightful and well-engaging, I should say, an hour of conversation. I think the people of Guyana, for those who are watching further afield, I think they are more enlightened now. They're emboldened, and I think they are better prepared to continue to fight for the will of the people. The time is drawing near. We've been fighting for some time now, but for democracy to prevail, you have to continuously fight for it, because people will always come along at some stage within the political history of a country that may want to promise something better and different, and you can end up back in the same position. So for democracy to prevail, it's a continuous fight, and people of Guyana would need to understand that this is not a fight that you can put aside. You have to continue to fight for democracy and for the will of the people, even when we're back in office, come soon when Dr. Irfaan Ali is elected, is sworn in, the fight still continues. So the fight does not end, because we are here to serve and to protect the will of the people. And that is what we're doing even through this program. So Priya, Nigel, thank you very much. And to the rest of Guyana, thank you for joining us, and have a good and pleasant evening.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Take care.